The first thing my husband abandoned was not me. It was the diaper bag. Ryan set it on the wet concrete outside the hospital like it weighed too much, even though I was the one holding our 3-day-old son against my chest. For a second, I thought he was going back inside. Maybe he had forgotten the discharge papers. Maybe the car seat straps needed adjusting. Maybe there was some ordinary explanation for the way he kept rubbing the back of his neck and refusing to look at me. Chicago rain whispered against the glass entrance behind us. Cars hissed along the street. Somewhere near the curb, a bus exhaled its brakes. Eli slept through all of it. I envied him. Ryan? He stared across the street. I can't do this anymore. The words were so quiet I almost missed them. I shifted Eli higher against my coat. My body still ached in places nobody warned you about politely. I had slept maybe 4 hours total since labor. My hair was twisted into a knot that had stopped being intentional yesterday. What does that mean? Ryan finally looked at me. Not at Eli. At me. And I knew. There are moments when your life changes loudly. Sirens. Screaming. Glass breaking. This one changed with my husband taking one step backward. I'm sorry, Claire. No, it came out sharper than I expected. He flinched. Good. You don't get to say that like you missed dinner. Please don't make this harder. I actually laughed. It was one ugly breath of sound. I gave birth 3 days ago. I know. Our son is 3 days old. I know. Then what exactly am I making harder? His jaw tightened. He looked past me again, toward the street, toward anywhere that wasn't his wife and newborn standing beneath a hospital awning with 2 bags and nowhere near enough sleep. I just need to go. Something cold moved through me. Not sadness yet. Something cleaner. What happened? Nothing. That's a lie. He grabbed the handle of his suitcase. I hadn't noticed it before. His suitcase. Not ours. A small black roller bag he had packed before coming to pick me up. My fingers tightened around Eli's blanket. How long have you known? Ryan said nothing. That silence hurt more than the answer. A nurse pushing an empty wheelchair glanced at us, then quickly away. My cheeks burned. I hated that. Not Ryan leaving. Not yet. I hated being witnessed while he did it. Give me the car keys, I said. He looked at me then. Really looked. I need the car. So do I. I'll send you money. What? I'll send you money, Claire. He said it like he was discussing utilities. I reached into my coat pocket for my phone. Fine. I'll call a ride. His face changed. Just slightly. Don't use the joint card. I stopped. Rain tapped softly against the metal awning. What did you do? Claire. What did you do? Eli stirred against me, making a small sound, and every part of my body reacted before my mind did. I rocked him once, automatically. When I looked up again, Ryan was already moving toward the parking garage. Ryan. He didn't turn around. Ryan. Nothing. He disappeared between 2 parked cars. I stood there holding our son while the automatic hospital doors opened and closed behind me, releasing little breaths of warm air into the cold. Across the street, a dark sedan had been parked beneath a dead streetlight since before we came outside. I noticed it only because a man in the back seat had not moved once. A second later, Ryan's car pulled away. Inside the sedan, the driver turned his head. Should I follow him? The man in the back watched my husband disappear into traffic. His face remained still. Not yet, Adrian Moretti said. Then his eyes shifted to me. The sedan's rear door opened. For one irrational second, I expected Ryan to step back out of the parking garage behind me and explain everything. Instead, a stranger crossed the street. He moved without hurry. That was the first thing I noticed. Chicago traffic slid around him in streaks of white headlights and red brake lights, rain turning the pavement into black glass. Everyone else rushed beneath umbrellas, shoulders raised against the cold. He didn't. He carried a black umbrella in one hand. Dark coat. No visible rush. No wasted movement. 2 men remained inside the sedan. I pulled Eli closer. The stranger stopped several feet away. Not close enough to trap me. Close enough that the umbrella covered my son. Rain continued striking my shoulder. None touched Eli's blanket. I looked up at him. He was older than Ryan, maybe mid-30s. Dark hair. A face that would have been handsome if it hadn't been so unreadable. His eyes went first to Eli. Then to me. "You're getting wet," he said. "So are you." His mouth shifted almost imperceptibly. Not a smile. Apparently. I took one step back. The umbrella moved with me, still covering Eli. That bothered me more than if he had tried to touch me. "Do I know you?" "No." "Then why were you watching us?" He didn't deny it. Behind me, the hospital doors opened. A security officer stepped outside, glanced in our direction, and immediately slowed. I saw recognition move across his face. Not friendliness. Calculation. He looked at the stranger, gave the smallest nod, then suddenly found something very interesting near the entrance. My stomach tightened. The man noticed me noticing. Still, he said nothing. I unlocked my phone. My rideshare app was already open. I typed in my address and pressed confirm. Payment declined. I frowned. Tried again. Declined. Of course, I whispered. I opened our banking app. The checking account showed $43.18. I stared at the number. Yesterday morning there had been more than 4,000. My thumb stopped moving. No savings. Almost empty. A transfer had cleared that afternoon. Ryan. I could see his name beside it. For a moment, the whole world narrowed to the glow of my phone and Eli's warm weight against my chest. Ryan hadn't panicked outside the hospital. He had prepared. The stranger's voice came quietly. "You need a ride. I need you to stop watching my phone." I wasn't. I looked up. His eyes were on my face. Somehow that felt worse. "I'm fine. You have a newborn, 2 bags, no car, and a card your husband made sure wouldn't work." My pulse jumped. "How do you know that?" He looked toward the garage where Ryan had disappeared. I followed his gaze. When I turned back, the stranger had shifted the umbrella another inch toward Eli. "You can take my car." No one word. Immediate. Something changed in his eyes. Not offense. Interest. "I don't get into cars with men who watch me from across the street." "That's sensible." "Great. Then we agree." I bent carefully for the diaper bag. Pain pulled low through my abdomen, sharp enough to steal half a breath. His hand moved. Then stopped. He could have taken the bag. He didn't. I straightened on my own. "Claire." Everything inside me went still. I had never told him my name. My fingers closed around the diaper bag strap. "Who are you?" A car horn sounded somewhere behind him. He didn't look away. Adrian Moretti. The name meant nothing to me. The reaction behind us did. The security officer lowered his eyes. Adrian watched me understand that. Then he said, almost gently, "Ryan didn't leave because he was afraid of being a father." Cold moved through me faster than the rain. How do you know my husband? Adrian didn't answer immediately. That was the second thing about him that unsettled me. Ryan filled silence with excuses. Apologies. Half-finished promises. Adrian let silence stay empty. Rain whispered around the edges of the umbrella. Eli shifted against my chest, his tiny mouth opening once before settling again. I asked you a question. I know. Then answer it. His gaze moved past me toward the hospital entrance. Ryan handled accounts for a freight brokerage connected to one of my companies. Connected. Not owned. Not worked for. The word felt chosen carefully. What kind of company? Transportation. And you sit outside hospitals in the rain waiting for your transportation employees? No, something in his tone made my skin tighten. I looked again at the sedan. The driver stared straight ahead now. The other man in front hadn't moved. No one checked a phone. No one looked impatient. They were waiting for Adrian to decide what happened next. I tightened my grip on the diaper bag. What did Ryan do? Adrian's jaw shifted once. Money disappeared. How much? That isn't the question you should be asking. Anger flashed hot enough to cut through my exhaustion. You don't get to decide what I should ask. His eyes met mine. For 1 second, I expected the air to harden. Instead, he gave a small nod. Fair. That surprised me more than an argument would have. How much? Enough that he knew leaving Chicago tonight was smarter than coming home. My stomach turned. No. Ryan complains when our electric bill is $20 higher than normal. He panics if the checking account drops below $1,000. People are often most careful with money they believe belongs to them. I stared at him. What does that mean? Adrian looked at my phone. Not the screen. My hand around it. Did Ryan ever ask you to sign business paperwork? I almost said no. Then memory caught. Tax season. Stacks of documents on our kitchen table. Ryan complaining about deadlines while I warmed soup between feeding Eli's future nursery plants I had somehow convinced myself we needed. A few forms. Maybe. Adrian went very still. That frightened me. What? Anything with your social security number? My heart started beating harder. I don't know. Bank authorization? I said I don't know. The words came out louder than I meant them to. Eli stirred. Instantly, I lowered my voice and rocked him against me. Adrian stepped back. Not because I asked. Because the baby had moved. The gesture was so small I nearly missed it. You think I'm involved, I said. No, you don't even know me. I know Ryan left you outside a hospital with a newborn while moving money out of your account. That doesn't prove anything about me. I didn't say it did. Then why are you here? His expression changed. Barely. But something colder settled behind his eyes. Because I was supposed to speak to your husband before he decided to run. The rain suddenly sounded louder. You were waiting for Ryan. Yes. What were you going to do? Adrian's gaze held mine. Ask him to explain himself. I almost laughed again. Something about the way the security officer wouldn't look in our direction told me Adrian Moretti's questions did not feel like ordinary questions. I swallowed. If he stole from you, call the police. A pause. I may. That answer told me nothing. And too much. My phone buzzed. Low battery. 9%. I looked down at Eli, then at the bags beside my feet. Adrian spoke before I could decide what to do next. There's something else. I looked up. He no longer seemed interested in whether I trusted him. Only whether I understood. Some of the accounts Ryan used, he said quietly, carry your name. For a moment, the cold disappeared. So did the traffic. The hospital. Everything. What? Claire. My voice came out thin. Am I in danger because of something he did? Adrian's silence lasted one heartbeat too long. Yes. Yes should have made me panic. Instead, it made me angry. Maybe exhaustion had burned through whatever part of me was supposed to be afraid. Maybe after labor, 3 sleepless nights, and watching my husband disappear into the rain, fear had simply become too expensive. I looked at Adrian. What kind of danger? The kind that gets worse if you stay somewhere predictable. So you want me to go where? I have a place. I almost laughed. A place. Secure. Quiet. No one gets in without my permission. That is not reassuring. His eyes held mine. No. It probably isn't. At least he didn't pretend. I looked down at Eli. His face was tucked against the blanket, impossibly peaceful, one tiny fist resting beneath his chin. I had spent 9 months worrying about car seats, crib mattresses, bottle sterilizers, whether the apartment would be too cold in January. Not once had I considered that his father might put my name on accounts tied to stolen money. I'm not going anywhere until I see my apartment. Adrian's expression tightened. That isn't a good idea. It's my home. It may not be safe. Then you can come with me. That made him pause. I adjusted the diaper bag higher on my shoulder. You wanted me to trust you enough to get into your car. Fine. Earn the next 5 miles. For the first time, something almost human passed through his face. Respect, maybe. Or surprise. 20 minutes later, I was standing outside my apartment building in Lincoln Square. The hallway smelled like old radiator heat and someone's burnt garlic. Familiar. Ordinary. I wanted to cry from relief. Then I unlocked my door. And stopped. The television was gone. So was Ryan's desktop computer. The small lockbox from our bedroom closet sat open on the floor. Empty. I walked farther in. His jackets were gone. His shoes. The expensive espresso machine he had insisted we could afford last Christmas. The framed wedding photo remained on the wall. That almost felt crueler. Adrian stayed near the doorway. He didn't touch anything. I went straight to the kitchen table. Bills. Hospital paperwork. A stack of tax documents I had organized 2 months ago because Ryan hated paperwork and I hated late fees. My hands moved automatically. Forms. Invoices. Routing numbers. Then I saw it. One freight invoice listed the same client code as another, but the dollar amounts were different. I pulled a second page free. Then a third. The same number appeared again. Adrian came closer. What is it? I don't know yet. I spread the papers across the table. Ryan used to tease me because I checked every pharmacy claim twice before closing a shift. Said I trusted numbers more than people. Tonight, I understood why. This invoice was entered twice, I said. But not for the same amount. Adrian's face went still. He reached for the page. I put my hand over it first. No, his eyes dropped to my fingers. Then back to me. You don't know what you're looking at. Maybe not. Claire. You can tell me what I'm facing. His jaw tightened. I held the paper where it was. But you don't get to decide what I do with it. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then Adrian slowly pulled his hand back. No argument. No threat. Just restraint. That unsettled me more than force would have. Because somewhere between the hospital curb and my kitchen table, the question had changed. It was no longer whether Adrian Moretti was dangerous. It was whether he could be dangerous without taking my choices away. Adrian looked at the papers beneath my hand, then toward Eli's carrier beside the kitchen table. Pack what you need for tonight. I stiffened. That sounded like an order. It was advice. You should work on the difference. A quiet breath left him. Almost amusement. Almost. Then he glanced toward the open lockbox in the hallway. I don't know who Ryan spoke to before he left. I don't know who knows these records exist. Staying here creates a risk I can't measure. That was harder to argue with. I hated that. I gathered the invoices into a folder and held it against my chest. If I go with you, there are rules. One of Adrian's eyebrows lifted. Rules. Yes. He leaned against the kitchen counter without touching it, as if even my cheap laminate required permission. I'm listening. Eli is not leverage. Ever. His expression changed first. Not softer. Sharper. He won't be. No one goes through my phone. No one opens my bags. No one reads anything that belongs to me unless I hand it over. A pause. Done. And Ryan doesn't get hurt because he left me. That one landed differently. Adrian's eyes narrowed. You're defending him? No, I looked at the empty space where our television had been. I'm defining me. Silence. Then Adrian nodded once. Understood. The place he took us wasn't a mansion. That surprised me. It was a quiet apartment above an old brick building near the river, furnished simply enough that nothing looked chosen to impress anyone. 2 bedrooms. Clean kitchen. Thick windows that muted the city into a distant hum. Security existed mostly in things I noticed by accident. A camera tucked above the elevator. A man reading the same newspaper for 40 minutes in the lobby. A locked stairwell Adrian opened without using a key. No one explained any of it. By the second day, I stopped asking. I had other things to do. Feed Eli. Sleep when he let me. Call the hospital billing office. Email a family law attorney. And go through every document Ryan had left behind. Adrian gave me space. More than I expected. When he needed a page, he asked. When I said no, he waited. That was new territory for both of us. His men entered rooms like they owned them. Adrian entered and somehow made everyone else remember who did. Conversations shortened when he appeared. Phones disappeared into pockets. Shoulders straightened. He never raised his voice. He didn't need to. On the 3rd night, I woke to Eli crying. The apartment was dark except for the amber light above the stove. I lifted him from the bassinet and paced the small bedroom, whispering nonsense into his hair. It's okay. I know. Everything is terrible. We agree. His cries softened. That was when I noticed someone beyond the doorway. Adrian stood in the hall. Bareheaded. White shirt, sleeves rolled once at the forearms. He hadn't crossed the threshold. How long have you been standing there? A minute. Why? I heard him. Eli made another small, offended sound. Adrian's gaze moved toward him, then away. You can go back to sleep, I said. I wasn't sleeping. Of course he wasn't. I studied him in the dim light. The man who could make grown men stop speaking with one glance looked almost uncertain beside a crying newborn. You can come in. He didn't move at first. That mattered. Then he stepped across the doorway slowly, stopping several feet away. Eli blinked up at him. Adrian looked back. For once, either of them seemed impressed by the other. And standing there in the half-dark, I realized trust wasn't arriving like a door swinging open. It was arriving inch by inch. And Adrian Moretti, strangely, was waiting for each inch to be offered. Adrian stayed less than 5 minutes. He didn't try to hold Eli. Didn't offer advice. Didn't ask questions designed to sound gentle. He just stood near the doorway while my son slowly settled against my shoulder, then left when I said I needed sleep. That restraint stayed with me longer than it should have. By morning, my phone was vibrating across the kitchen counter. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then the voicemail notification appeared. Claire. It's me. Ryan. My hand went cold around the coffee mug. I played the message twice. His voice sounded thinner than I remembered. I know you hate me. You should. I need to see you. Please. I want to see Eli. Adrian was standing near the window when I looked up. I hadn't heard him enter. You recognize the number? Know the voice? Yes. That was enough. His expression changed. Not surprise. Something more controlled. Don't call him back. I set the phone down. That wasn't a suggestion. No, then we're already breaking my rules. Adrian's jaw tightened. He disappeared with money that doesn't belong to him and left documents carrying your name behind. If he's calling now, he wants something. Probably. And you still want to meet him? Yes. He looked at me for a long moment. Why? Because I had spent 3 days hearing Ryan's lies in my head. Because unanswered questions had started taking up more space than grief. Because I needed to know whether there had been one honest moment in the last year. Instead I said, because I need him to say it to my face. Adrian looked toward the bedroom where Eli was sleeping. What if it's bait? Then I don't go alone. That made him still. Not pleased. Not exactly. But listening. I choose the place, I continued. Public. Daylight. My attorney knows where I am. And me? You can know where I am. His mouth almost moved. That generous? Don't ruin it. An hour later, I called Ryan. We agreed on a cafe in River North just before noon. Crowded. Glass front. Too many witnesses for anyone to behave stupidly. Adrian hated it. I could tell because he said almost nothing. At the cafe, he didn't sit with me. That had been another condition. I took a table near the windows. One of Adrian's men sat 3 tables away with a newspaper folded beside his coffee. He never looked at me. He didn't need to. Ryan arrived 12 minutes late. The moment he stepped inside, his eyes swept the room. Then found the man with the newspaper. All the color left his face. That was when something inside me shifted. Ryan knew exactly who Adrian was. He slid into the chair across from me. Claire. Don't. His hands shook. I had seen those hands assemble our crib. Fasten Eli's car seat. Sign our marriage license. Now they couldn't stay still. I'm sorry. What do you want? His eyes flicked toward the newspaper again. Is he here? Answer me. Ryan swallowed. I made mistakes. You emptied our account. I panicked. You packed a suitcase. Silence. I leaned back. There it was again. The truth hiding inside what he refused to say. Then Ryan reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document. My stomach tightened. I just need one signature. I stared at him. He pushed the paper toward me. It'll fix everything. No, Claire, please. What is it? A transfer authorization. Something in me went very quiet. Not broken. Quiet. I looked at the signature line. My name was already printed beneath it. Ryan wasn't here for forgiveness. He wasn't here for Eli. He was here because there was still something of mine he needed. I looked up at him. When did you decide to leave us? Ryan's eyes dropped. And he said nothing. Ryan kept staring at the table. Not at me. Not at the paper. At the dark grain between us, like there might be an answer hidden there. When? I asked again. His throat moved. Before the hospital. The cafe seemed to tilt. Outside, a delivery truck hissed through wet pavement. Someone laughed near the register. A spoon struck ceramic. Ordinary sounds. That was the cruelest part. How long before? A few days. I looked at the folded authorization between us. A few days. While I was timing contractions. While nurses checked monitors. While he told me everything was going to be okay. He had already packed. You came to pick me up knowing you were leaving. Claire, I was scared. So was I. He flinched. Good. I pushed the document back across the table. I'm not signing anything. His hand closed over it. You don't understand what happens if I can't move that money. No. You don't understand. I leaned closer. You already used my name once. You don't get it again. His eyes flicked toward the man with the newspaper. Fear moved through his face so nakedly that for 1 second I almost recognized my husband. Then it was gone. Moretti won't let this go. That sounds like your problem. I stood. Ryan reached toward my wrist, then stopped before touching me. Maybe he remembered who was watching. Maybe he finally remembered I could say no. I walked out without looking back. Adrian was waiting in a car half a block away. He said nothing when I got in. That lasted until we reached the apartment. Then he asked, what did he want? I handed him the unsigned authorization. His eyes moved across the page once. Everything in the room changed. One of his men near the kitchen straightened. Another stopped speaking mid-sentence. Adrian folded the paper carefully. Too carefully. Bring Bennett to me. The words were quiet. 2 men moved immediately. No, they stopped. Not because I was Claire Bennett. Because Adrian hadn't told them to keep moving. He turned toward me. He tried to use you again. I know. He put your name on accounts, emptied your money, abandoned you outside a hospital, and then asked you to help him finish what he started. I know. His restraint was thinning now. I could see it in the stillness of his hands. Then why are you stopping me? Because if Ryan disappears after meeting me, who do you think everyone looks at? His gaze sharpened. The police. Investigators. Anyone tracing that money. They come back to me. To Eli. No one moved. I stepped closer. Not fearless. Just finished being moved around by other people's decisions. He used my name because he thought I was convenient. Adrian said nothing. I'm not letting you use it because you're angry. Something cold flashed across his face. I'm not angry for myself. That doesn't make it better. The room went silent. I could feel every man in it waiting to see which version of Adrian Moretti would answer me. I held his gaze. He doesn't get mercy because he hurt me. A beat. But he also doesn't get punished in my name. Adrian looked toward the 2 men by the door. Seconds passed. Then, sit down. They did. No argument. No hesitation. Just obedience. Adrian placed the folded document on the table between us. For the first time since I had met him, I understood the full shape of his power. It wasn't that he could make things happen. It was that everyone expected him to. And he had just chosen not to. His eyes returned to mine. Then tell me what justice looks like to you. I looked at the folded document between us. Justice looks like Ryan answering for what he did without becoming a story people whisper about afterward. Adrian's expression didn't change. I kept going. It means my name gets separated from his accounts. It means investigators see the records before anyone has time to bury them. It means Eli grows up knowing his father made choices and faced consequences for them. And me? That question surprised me. What about you? If I step back, I lose leverage. There it was. Not a threat. A cost. I looked at him differently. Until then, part of me had assumed Adrian's restraint was easy because power made everything easy. Apparently not. How much? Enough. That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting. I should have been irritated. Instead, I understood. He wasn't trying to impress me with what he was sacrificing. That mattered. I picked up the unsigned authorization. Then help me make this clean. The next 48 hours became paper, phone calls, and coffee gone cold. My attorney arranged the first contact. I gave investigators copies of the invoices, bank records, messages, and every document carrying my signature. The real ones. And the ones that weren't. I answered questions until my throat felt dry. Adrian stayed out of the room. That had been my choice. But every time I stepped into the hallway, he was there somewhere. Sometimes standing near a window. Sometimes speaking quietly into a phone. Sometimes saying nothing at all. His presence changed things even when he didn't. Men who had ignored calls suddenly returned them. Accounts Ryan thought he could access stopped moving. A private broker who had been willing to transfer funds withdrew without explanation. A contact Ryan had apparently trusted stopped answering him. No one told me Adrian had done it. No one had to. That was his world. Doors didn't slam. They simply stopped opening. On the third evening, I found him alone at the kitchen table. The city glowed beyond the windows in blurred gold and blue. He had a file open in front of him. One page. A number circled near the bottom. "You're losing money," I said. His eyes lifted. "Some. Because of the way I'm handling this." "Partly." I pulled out the chair across from him. "You could still take control." "Yes." "And get more of it back." "Yes." The honesty landed harder than reassurance would have. "Then why aren't you?" Adrian closed the file. For a moment, all I could hear was the refrigerator humming and Eli breathing through the monitor on the counter. Then he said, "Because this time, the cost belongs to the man who created it." Something tightened behind my ribs. Not romance. Not yet. Recognition. Ryan had spent months making sure consequences traveled outward. To accounts. To paperwork. To me. Adrian, somehow, was doing the opposite. Taking a loss to keep the consequence where it belonged. I looked down at my hands. "I thought men like you solved problems by making people disappear." A shadow moved through his expression. "Sometimes disappearing is the easiest answer." "And this?" "This is harder." "Good." That earned the smallest smile. Then my phone buzzed. A message from my attorney. The investigators had formally cleared me from immediate suspicion pending final review. I read it twice. My lungs finally remembered how to fill completely. Adrian watched my face. "They believe you?" "They believe the records." "That's better." I nodded. For the first time since leaving the hospital, I wasn't standing inside Ryan's damage. I was standing beside the consequences. And Adrian Moretti had chosen to stand there too. I read the message a third time. Cleared from immediate suspicion. The words were clinical. Almost boring. I had never loved boring more. My attorney called 10 minutes later and confirmed what the message meant: the records, the timelines, the forged authorizations, the transfer trail. They all pointed away from me and back toward Ryan. For the first time, his choices were attached to his name, not mine. When the call ended, I stood at the kitchen window and watched the river move beneath the city lights. Adrian stayed across the room. He didn't congratulate me. Didn't say "I told you so." He just waited until I looked at him. "What happens now?" I asked. "To Ryan?" "Yes." "He answers questions." "And after that?" "That depends on the people asking them." I studied his face. "You're really staying out of it." I said I would. Something in me softened. Not because he had become harmless. He hadn't. Because he had chosen restraint when using power would have been easier. Over the next few weeks, consequences arrived without drama. Ryan was formally charged with fraud and theft-related offenses after investigators finished tracing the accounts. His attorney contacted mine. I refused every request to speak with him directly. That surprised me. I had spent so many nights imagining the conversation I wanted. In the end, I didn't need one. Silence could belong to me too. I found a smaller apartment near Ravenswood with enough morning light for Eli's crib and a kitchen that smelled faintly of fresh paint instead of old arguments. I went back to the pharmacy 3 days a week. Then 4. I learned which cry meant hunger and which one meant exhaustion. I learned I could carry groceries, a car seat, and my entire life up 2 flights of stairs if I had to. Adrian never tried to buy any of it for me. That mattered. He sent nothing extravagant. No rent payments. No car. No keys to some larger life. Sometimes he called. Sometimes I answered. Sometimes I didn't. And he never punished the silence. Months passed. Winter settled over Chicago, turning the windows white at the edges. One evening, after Eli finally fell asleep, someone knocked on my door. 3 quiet taps. I checked the peephole. Adrian stood in the hallway. Alone. No driver visible. No men lingering near the stairs. Just Adrian in a dark wool coat, snow melting along one shoulder. I opened the door halfway. "You could have called." I did. I glanced at my phone on the counter. 2 missed calls. Eli was having a difficult night. I assumed. "Why are you here?" He looked past me only as far as the doorway allowed. Not inside. Never inside. I was in the neighborhood. I stared at him. "You're terrible at lying." "I'm selective." That almost made me smile. Almost. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The hallway light hummed softly above us. Months ago, silence between Adrian and me had felt dangerous. Now it felt honest. He looked at me, not through me. Not around me. At me. "Can I come in?" Such a small question. From anyone else, it would have meant nothing. From Adrian Moretti, it meant everything. This was a man who had spent his life making doors open before he reached them. A man people moved for. A man who had once stood outside a hospital waiting for my husband and somehow ended up waiting for my permission instead. I held his gaze. Then I opened the door wider. Not because I owed him. Not because he had protected me. Not because I was afraid to say no. Because this time, the choice was mine. He had spent his whole life making doors open. Mine was the first one he waited to be invited through.